Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining me on this edition of the 6 p.m. primetime newscast on Equinoxe television. Our lone major story tonight: civil society leaders, political analysts, and many other Cameroonians raise concerns about the adverse impact of the high number of candidatures received by the elections organizing body Elections Cameroon for the upcoming presidential elections. 82 candidatures have so far been received by LECAM. Some major parties, including the CPDM, UPC, MANIDEM, and Univer parties, have submitted multiple candidates, sparking concerns about potential implications on the electoral process. That is our lone major story tonight. Stay with us for the news in full in a jiffy. Thank you so much for choosing Equinoxe television to get yourself informed on what is happening in, and why not, out of Cameroon. We'll begin with the road to Etudi, which is currently near the upcoming presidential election in Cameroon, has already raised eyebrows, with some observers likening it to a comedy show due to the sheer number of candidatures. At the LECAM's headquarters, some candidates spotted have sparked questions about their seriousness and qualification for the upcoming presidential elections. Annabella reports on some of these candidates.
The race ahead of the presidential election in Cameroon has seen several curiosities, especially some declared candidates who observers think are somehow playing down on this very high position of the nation. One of them is the candidacy of 26-year-old Mohamedou Lamine Adamu, a university student in Gaoundéré, who deposited his file at the LECAM office. Meanwhile, the minimum age to aspire for the top job in Cameroon as president is 35. Another sad curiosity is that of Mfula Cedric Gael, who isn't even resident in Cameroon. He was called by his friends to present his candidacy for the presidential election, not knowing that they were just joking. One other unpleasant curiosity in this presidential race is that of Besiping, president of the Movement of Ecological Forces. After depositing his farm, he declares to journalists that he won't pay any caution or deposit of 30 million francs CFA.
J'ai été abusivement suspendu le sol. J'ai passé des années. On ne m'a pas fait le rappel. Donc.
He explains to the astonishment of the public that the National Treasury owes him a huge amount of money after he went on retirement years ago, and that money should be used as his own caution.
Le trésor a déjà suffisamment
millions.
Avec les intérêts qu'ils me doivent, je ne peux pas venir donc ajouter l'argent sur l'argent.
On the media, we have seen candidates who create doubt in the minds of Cameroonians on the symbolism of an important and critical period in a country's political history, such as the presidential election. Whatever be the case, LECAM head offices across the country have already received 82 presidential files. The elections governing body LECAM now has a duty to select the wheat from the crops and subsequently publish the list of candidates fit to be part of the top job and occupying the Unity Palace after October 12.
Annabella reporting there. And we stay in politics. Dieudonné Yepga's submission of his candidacy file at the LECAM headquarters in Yaoundé has brought about confusion in the minds of many Cameroonians. The controversy surrounds dual claim to the party's leadership between Dieudonné Yepga and Anissé Kane, who really is the legitimate president of MANIDEM party. Malaglory has an answer to this question.
Curtains drew to a close on Monday, July 21st, for the submission period for Cameroon's 2025 presidential race in a dramatic way. Dieudonné Yepga of the UPC MANIDEM party filed his candidacy at a LECAM headquarters in Yaoundé, becoming the final aspirant to join what promises to be a politically charged contest. Yepga declared his intention to bring about change, but a peaceful one, saying that Cameroon deserves a future built through dialogue, not division. He was surrounded by a handful of comrades, visibly energized by his stance and determined to reclaim what they describe as the original ideals of UPC MANIDEM. However, Yepga's candidacy also arrives amid a storm of controversy that has cast shadows over the party's identity and leadership. Just 5 days earlier, Anise Kane, the longtime president of the African Movement for New Independence and Democracy, MANIDEM, a party founded in 1995 after leaving the original UPC MANIDEM party, invested Maurice Kamto as MANIDEM's presidential candidate. That decision formalized on July 16 and publicly backed by 2018 documents from the Ministry of Territorial Administration confirming Kane's presidency, added an unexpected twist to the race. Until the early hours of July 21st, the ministry's official website still listed Anise Kane as president of MANIDEM, cementing the legitimacy of Kamto's candidacy under that banner. The shutdown of the website sparked a wave of speculation, with many Cameroonians taking to social media to express concern over the transparency of the political process. Despite the confusion over who really speaks for MANIDEM, Maurice Kamto remains recognized as the official MANIDEM candidate, a move seen by many as a strategic alliance between the seasoned opposition figure and a party yearning for revival.
In the same vein, is the multiplicity of candidacies a negative factor for Cameroon's democracy? We put this question to political analyst and Babala Jonathan compiled their views in the following report.
From 28 candidatures received by Elections Cameroon in the 2018 presidential election to 82 in 2025, an increase in the number of candidacy files seen as a drawback to the democratic process of the country.
It's simply a pointer to the fact that we have chosen division to prolong our suffering. It is simply a pointer to the fact that our opposition has refused to sit together and talk. Why not even sit and talk on power sharing deal? It's a pointer to the fact that they are heeded to the head of state's call to divide Cameroon, to play the divide and rule policy so that it can stay in power forever.
Another side of the coin reveals a positive perspective of the high number of candidatures for the October 12 presidential election.
It actually shows that the presidential seat is actually a common seat. It's a seat that was put there by the people for the people, and therefore should not be away from the people. So with 82 candidates, it actually shows that that seat belongs to the people and that power comes from the people. Because when some people take power, they think that it belongs to them. No, those candidates, and if you look at them even, many of them are from all walks of life. So it tells you that any commoner can be the president because that's what the law says. So I guess we are living the law. We are living the spirit of the law to say that anybody can be president in Cameroon provided you know what you're doing.
However, a point of convergence of divergent opinions on the matter is the quality of personalities vying for the post of President of the Republic.
It is sad because at this particular point, you see people who have never chaired a family meeting vying for it today. Some of these people, very unkempt, very unclean, walking on foot to go to Elekam. I think it's a failure on the part of our electoral law.
The people who have shown up as presidential candidates, are they worth their salt? Could they do their job? But asking why they should come is not a question to be asked, because they have a right to be there, and they have demonstrated to every Cameroonian the world over that Cameroon is democratic. I think it's a sign of our democracy that you let people express themselves, except of course that when we go to tick their boxes according to the law, many of them are going to fall.
Meantime, Article 126 of the Electoral Code states that no less than 60 days before the date of the poll, the Electoral Board shall draw up and publish the list of candidates and immediately notify the Constitutional Council, pending appeals and possible modification of the list if necessary.
Cameroon is facing a case of multiple candidatures submitted for the 2025 presidential elections. In a significant development ahead of the 2025 presidential elections, several political parties have submitted multiple candidacies to Elections Cameroon offices. There are about 4 political parties. Femi Armstrong Sanda outlined some of these parties.
significant development ahead of the 2025 Cameroonian presidential elections. Several political parties have had multiple candidacies submitted to the elections governing body, Elections Cameroon. According to information obtained from Election Cameroon, the following political parties have had multiple candidacy submissions in their names. The Cameroon People's Democratic Movement, the CPDM party. The party has submitted 2 candidacies featuring 92-year-old incumbent Paul Biya going for an 8th mandate. His candidacy was submitted by the Secretary General of the party, Jean Kwete, in Yaoundé. The second candidacy of the CPDM party came from Leon Taylor Onana, a CPDM party municipal councillor of Monatele in the Central region, who came to the limelight by advocating for a strict respect of the CPDM party's internal text. He had warned that this scenario will be possible if the party failed to hold a congress before going in for the presidentials. The UPC political party on its part has submitted 3 candidacies featuring 1, Yamtimbang Dominique, 2, a renowned Garwa-based lawyer Abdurrahman Baba Hamadou, and Professor Jean Baebek, a respected academic and surgeon. Another political party with multiple submissions is the Universe Party of Professor Prosper Nkumvondo. The party has seen 2 candidacy submissions featuring 1, an internationally recognized anti-corruption lawyer, Batone Akeremuna, whose candidacy file was submitted by the party's national president, Professor Nkumvondo Prosper, in Yaoundé in the Central region. The second candidacy bearing the party was submitted by Chantal Adelaide Tenye, who dropped her file in Gaundere in the Adama region of the country. The fourth and not the least party on the list is the African Movement for New Independence and Democracy, the Manidem political party of Anise Kane. The party, represented by its national president Anise Kane, presented Maurice Kamto as its flag bearer, submitting his candidacy file at Election Cameroon's head office in the nation's political capital city, Yaoundé. Few hours to the end of the submission exercise, Jedone Yebga, retired and one-time rival of the current Manidem president, personally submitted his candidacy file in Yaoundé under the UPC Manidem. These last-minute entries bring to 82 the total number of candidacies submitted to Elections Cameroon across the National Triangle.
Now we talk education. Cameroonians are divided over the 10% boost in this year's baccalaureate pass rate, which was from 47.45% to that from that of 37% of last year. While some welcome the improvement, education has expressed disappointment, calling it regrettable. A secondary school teacher attributes the persistent poor performance to rampant exam malpractice and a flawed educational system, as Innocent Aze tells us.
47.45% pass is the result of the 2024-2025 session of the baccalaureate examination, an improvement by 10% compared to the previous year result, which stood at 37.26%. But this statistical improvement does not raise enthusiasm. For Rahul Lemopi, a secondary school teacher and trade unionist, this outcome remains far from satisfactory.
The
percentage increase merits no applause because the results hide several cracks that really needs to be sealed to have a factual evaluation. Circumstances that have marked the school year cast a shadow over this performance. Repeated teacher strike, digitization of the education system, which is still inaccessible in many rural areas, and above all, numerous cases of examination malpractices. With all the malpractices recorded and forwarded to the Ministry of Secondary Education, nothing was done to remedy the situation. With the 47% pass, one can imagine the strength of the certificate that students will be awarded, certainly with certificates.
Inéquitable, il s'agit des diplômes qui vont être décernés qui ne codifient aucune compétence véritable.
Addition to this is the new deliberation criteria put in place requiring a minimum average of 10 to pass the exam. Last year, we reproached the Minister of Secondary Education for making a hasty deliberation. This was corrected as throughout the school year, she worked to sensitize future examination candidates. Even if these conditions were respected, teachers' trade unions believe students could achieve better results provided the state took full responsibility in their framework. They also denounce a progressive slippage of priorities among young people, increasingly turned to centers of interest away from the school framework.
And now we talk something else. Now, coming up, that is it for the first part of the news. Coming up next is Cameroon Today. Located in Cameroon's east region, the gold-rich village of Turake in Betare Oya remains a shadow of itself. No electricity, poor roads, and inadequate health care are some of the problems faced by residents of this area who solely depend on peasant farming activities and hunting. Smajikan Gabriel takes us to Turake in this report.
On the Lom Bridge, an unusual happening forces us to make a temporary stop as a cow's leg got stuck in the bridge. Many hands were needed to finally help it regain its freedom.
Voilà, ça sort. Ça sort, allez. Voilà.
Avant ces ponts que vous voyez ici là.
Before, when we wanted to go to the main town, we used to cross on canoe. And if you arrive here by 4 p.m. and not lucky, you can spend the night here because no canoe will be available. So things have evolved here because if those paddling the canoe are not here, you are obliged to sleep if you are coming from Turake. Today, it is like we are in Europe. Turake, found in Betare Oya, originated just after crossing the Lom Bridge. The people here live on breeding and hunting, an activity which is sometimes demanding. Heading towards Turake village, the journey wasn't an easy one due to the poor state of the road. In the absence of the chief, who was very far from the village, the first notable, Alphonse, welcomes us. When the chief isn't around, I can receive his guests while waiting for his arrival. A guided tour took us to the health center of Turake. The structure is lacking in equipment and it has just one nurse. We don't have many patients who visit us regularly, but majority come from construction sites and some few patients from town, as well as the Mbororo too. Those are just some of the patients we receive here. Life is difficult here because some people don't like to work in the hinterland, but as a medical practitioner, when you're called up, no matter the zone, you're forced to go there because your mission is to save lives. Water is also a rare thing in Turake, but 2 boreholes are available for the over 2,000 inhabitants of the village to quench their thirst. There are 2 boreholes here, this one and another around the school. It takes time to fill your container. The village is not different from those found in other areas of the country. Same need, bad roads, unequipped health center, and lack of potable water. But exceptionally, in Turake, the search for gold hasn't changed the face of the village. There are those who go in search of gold and do farming, but majority go in search of gold. Notwithstanding the gold in Betare Oya, which has made many to come to the village, development is still lacking behind.
The report done by Smajikan Gabriel on the challenges faced by the people of Turake ends the second part of the news. Talking Point is up next. My guest tonight is Dr. KINANG Derick FAI, a political scientist, and tonight we'll be discussing on the recent surge in candidacies during these presidential elections. Good evening, Doctor. It's a pleasure having you on Talking Point tonight.
Thanks and thanks for having me once again on Equinoxe TV. It's always a pleasure sharing our ideas as to burning issues affecting the country. So I want to say again my greetings to the entire Equinoxe crew and to your millions of viewers all over the world.
Doctor, we just watched in the report done by Fomi Armstrong Sander that this year there was a surge in candidature filings, 82 this year versus 29 files received in 2018. What does this reveal about the political landscape in Cameroon at the moment?
Yeah, it is true we've noticed an increase in the number of those that are registered, and one can also note the fact that these persons have just appeared from nowhere. Most of them are not known to the Cameroonian public as a whole and the political landscape of the country in particular. Ideally, one would have said it's a positive reading which shows the increase in the political consciousness of so many Cameroonians. Ideally, one would have said it is also a movement that shows the desire for Cameroonians to exercise their fundamental human rights, especially their rights that are protected from the standpoint of political rights. But it's rather unfortunate that, like you rightly said, these persons are unknown, and it gives a kind of tendency in which one is seeing the electoral process in Cameroon becoming a comedy show. It draws our attention to the fact that there is some kind of banalization of the supreme position of the country, which is that of the presidency of the republic. I'm saying so not like trying to pour acids on a particular candidate, but when you look at the physiology of certain candidates, when you look at the information circulating yet to be confirmed about some of these candidates, and when you look at what they have been able to bring forth as per the documents needed for their candidacy, it leaves one with no other choice than to think that they are not just unknown, but they are like a kind of increasing the comedy show that has characterized the electoral process this 2025. It draws our attention to the fact that there is more to it than just the determination of a people that have gained political consciousness. There is more to it than the determination of a people that are vying for the supreme position. There is more to it than the determination of a people that are aimed at exercising their rights, which is the right to political participation and leadership.
Now, Doctor, at a time when political parties have been asked to come together, form a coalition in order to beat the over 43-year-old regime that has been in power for this length of time, we are rather seeing more candidates, some even we have never heard about them, just springing up. What's making Cameroon's opposition to be very divided, especially at this type of crucial moment when many Cameroonians have been praying, have been kind of even fasting at some point for a change in this country?
Personally, I think there are a couple of factors that can be brought on board, though there is a nuance that can be brought as well to this issue of a possible division that is existing within the opposition. We want to take note of the fact that we are talking about the presidential election, which is the process through which we get the #1 statesman of the Republic of Cameroon, the process through which we get the supreme authority of the Republic. So the stakes are extremely high. Thus, it becomes very possible for us to see the desire in each and every candidate to want to be that person that will take that supreme baton of command in the country. So these high stakes can as well usually explain the division that exists within the opposition ranks in Cameroon. We also want to talk about the idea around the determination to have people go in for the desire to want to meet up their self-interest, because whether we like it or not, we are dealing with politicians, and he who talks about politicians talks about the desire to always have personal stakes prime. But there is, like I said, a nuance that can be brought to this in the sense that the opposition might seem divided, but at the same time it is a well-planned strategy by the opposition we see in Cameroon this 2025. I want to believe that there is a tendency, or there is that possibility, that the division we experience within the opposition as per the multitudes of candidacy that Elekam has received might be a well-planned strategy by a cross-section of some opposition leaders that matter and mean in the political landscape of Cameroon. It might be a strategy of them to maybe go in dispersed ranks and get the necessary validation, and from there they can now see how they can form the needed coalition with those that have been validated to have the electoral game take place. So in my opinion, some of these factors can be brought on board to explain the division existing between the opposition ranks in Cameroon. But like I rightly said, it has a nuance, in as much as we are saying it is the supreme position. The reason why they are going because the stakes are high, in as much as we are saying we are dealing with politicians that look for interest and their self-satisfaction first before any other thing, the reason why they are divided, we are also saying that the division can be a well-planned and calculated strategy aimed at having them eligible before vying for possible coalitions, so that they are sure and certain that the persons they are preparing or the choosing candidate that will take the coalition will be a candidate that is already eligible, going by the electoral law, going by the laws governing the electoral process in Cameroon.
Now, what will be the impact of this multiplicities of candidatures on the democratic move?
Personally, I don't think there is a kind of major impact that one can experience with this multiplicity of candidates, because we have the few that we know are well known and recognized within the political landscape of Cameroon. I strongly believe the electoral process and the campaign right up to the voting and proclamation of results is going to be focused on the key actors within the electoral system, within this electoral process that we all know. Another thing we might want to bring out as an implication is that due to this what I call banalization of state symbols and institutions, due to this what I call a comedy show of candidacy for the 2025 presidential election, one can say another implication is that it has increased the desire and the know-how of so many Cameroonians that are increasingly becoming interested in the actuality or the actualities or the breaking news, as we usually call it, or how can I even put it? It draws more and more many Cameroonians to start giving an eye or a listening ear to the electoral process in the country. Because when we see some of these so many unknown candidates that have come up, you discover that it has become some like a kind of fun or comedy, be it on social media, be it in our communities, be it in the day-to-day daily subsistence or existence of many Cameroonians. The discourse, I want to say, it's ongoing, and many Cameroonians are becoming more and more concerned with the electoral process because they want to really know what becomes the end product of some of these unknown and unpopular candidates, so to say. So in my opinion, it is a one in which it's going to draw the attention of many Cameroonians to start giving a listening ear, to start giving an observing eye, to see what the outcome of these particular presidential elections come October is going to look like. Especially ever since the Electoral College was convened, you discover that Cameroonians are increasingly becoming more informed and more concerned about what the October 2025 presidential elections are going to look like.
Now, Dr. Derick, among some of the presidential aspirants, we have seen a 26-year-old man, and we all know that one of the requirements to be president of this country must be at least 35 years. That means just from his age, he's already disqualified him from the race. Apart from his case, what other reasons could be advanced as a rejection of some files, and how might Elecam's criteria impact the 2025 candidates?
I think these can be gotten around the existing rules and regulations governing the electoral process in Cameroon, as well as the policies governing the electoral process in Cameroon. To this, we might want to talk about laws like the law number 2012/001 of 19 April 2012, creating the electoral code of Cameroon. You want to also refer to existing legislations like law number 90/056 of 19 December 1990 on the creation of political parties in Cameroon. So you discover that be it the 2012 law relating to the electoral code or the 1990 law on the creation of political parties, you can begin to start understanding why some candidates will be rejected. But if I want to limit myself to the 2012 electoral code, the law leading to the production of the present electoral code, you will discover that in the part, if I'm not making a mistake, in the part 4 of that law, precisely in its chapter 2, it talks about eligibility, and the chapter 3, which talks about nominations and candidacy, you discover that that law spells out some of the ingredients that can lead to rejection of candidacy. And to me, I want to pick just some few aspects of them. We've seen candidates that have come and deposited, and information reaching us that we are yet to confirm is of the fact that many of them have been unable to provide the 30 million caution that is demanded as the amount of money you are to deposit so as to be a candidate. Who even hear stories about a candidate who is a retired someone coming to deposit on pretext that he is being owed money by the state, and so his candidacy should be accepted, and the money the state is owing him used for the candidacy. That is comedy, right? I just hope and strongly believe these things are not true. We've seen candidates that are depositing but are unable to provide necessary documentations that have been asked for. Rumors circulated as to how a particular candidate came and was saying he or she has forgotten their ID cards. We've heard about candidates that came and had to withdraw in the name of, they discovered that their candidacy and their project, it's in the same direction with that of the incumbent. So these criteria and many more are some of the points that can be brought on board, some of the criteria that will be used by ELECAM to reject candidates. You discover that when you go to chapter 2, part 4 of the 2012 law on the electoral code, precisely when you read sections 117 to section 119, it gives you clear-cut knowledge as to who at the end of the day is going to be eligible and who will not be eligible. You can also want to refer to the chapter 3, which talks about how one can become an independent candidate and the conditions towards becoming an independent candidate. We are talking about the criteria of 300 signatures. We know of so many that have withdrawn from the race because they were unable to get the 300 signatures. We know of those that still went ahead to deposit as independent candidates, but right up till now, information is that they are yet to produce the 300 duly authentified signatures. So these and many more are some of the points that can be brought on board and to put an end to the rejection of a particular candidate, especially when we are talking about plus 80 candidates. And in those plus 80 candidates, information reaching us is of the opinion that many are having incomplete files. You see, the law says ELECAM can accept or reject. So even if a file is not complete, if ELECAM accepts the file will be taken. It will be left for the Constitutional Council to decide, and when they will decide, alongside the necessary institutions that are competent on it, it will be left for them to decide who will be eligible and who will not be eligible. But these are some of the points you can bring on board. We are not the Constitutional Council, we are not the competent authority, but we are just saying these are some of the existing criteria of eligibility that can be brought on board to push someone to start doubting the possibility of a particular candidate.
Now, what does these situations reveal about the country's democratic process and potential areas you think needs improvement? Unfortunately, we'll not be able to have that answer to that question because we are already out of time. Thank you so much, Dr. KINANG Derick, for being part of today's program. That's what put a cap to today's edition of the 6 p.m. primetime newscast on Equinoxe Television. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for always choosing Equinoxe Television. Have a wonderful evening in the company of more interesting programs on ETV. Bye-bye for now.